The Great Wall of China, in China. Christ the Redeemer statue in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Machu Picchu in Peru. Chichen Itza in the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico. The Roman Colosseum in Rome. Petra in Jordan. And our very own Taj Mahal. Do you know what I'm talking about? Well, I'm talking about the 7 wonders of the world. You see, over the years, man has created many wonderful pieces of art and architecture around the world, and these historical places hold so many secrets. So the opportunity of exploring them is absolutely endearing. Now, some of these monuments have received the highest honors, like the 7 wonders, while there are some that are conserved, and there are those which lay forgotten in ruins. But according to William Shakespeare, monuments may be forgotten and may lie in ruins, but written work will never fade away. And he has beautifully penned down this feeling of his in his famous sonnet, "Not marble nor the gilded monuments." Today we will discuss about this very sonnet. But before we get into the details of the poem, let's get to know about the legend himself in William Shakespeare. This famous English writer was born in the year 1564 in Stratford-upon-Avon. He is regarded by many as the greatest writer in the world of the English language. His literary work now was not only limited to just writing poems, but he was a dramatist and an actor too. His works consists of plays, sonnets, and some very long narrative poems and other verses as well. Some of his very famous dramatic tragedies include Hamlet, Macbeth, Othello, and King Lear. And this was a little something about his renowned playwright and poet prowess that he owned. Now, one of his most popular works, surprisingly, is Shakespeare's Sonnets, and it is a collection of just 154 sonnets by him. Now, a sonnet is a 14-line poem. The word sonnet finds its origin in Italian sonetto, which means a little song. And Not Marble Nor the Gilded Monuments is sonnet number 55 in this collection. So how about we move on and read Not Marble Nor the Gilded Monuments. Not marble nor the gilded monuments of princes shall outlive this powerful rhyme, but you shall shine more bright in these contents than unswept stone besmeared with sluttish time. When wasteful war shall statues overturn, and broils root out the work of masonry, nor Mars his sword, nor war's quick fire shall burn the living record of your memory. 'Gainst death and all oblivious enmity shall you pace forth, your praise shall still find room even in the eyes of all posterity. That wear this world out to the ending doom, so till the judgment that yourself arise, you live in this and dwell in lovers' eyes. Well, through this sonnet, Shakespeare conveys his optimism that with time, his poetic verses will not get outlived by either monuments made by marble or monuments with gold decor or the wealthy and the powerful. And you know what? It is true, don't you think? The works of Shakespeare are indeed very powerful, and they have managed to outlive many. He also says that the monuments will wear away as time passes by, but his poetry is written for his friend who will live longer than the stone monument which has been left uncared for and will immortalize him in the memories of the people. Next, he has contrasted his verses with the ravages of time on monuments. He says that when battles and wars are fought, the monuments built in honor of the rulers get demolished each time, and everybody forgets about them after a while. So true, isn't it? But neither Mars, nor the god of war, nor fire can erase the written memory of his friend's life. It will continue even after his death. The poet asserts, unlike the forgotten princes, his friend will be loved by generations to come, as through this poem he will live in the hearts of people till doomsday, that is judgment day, the end of the world. This sure sounds like an interesting poem, doesn't it? But before you get too excited to learn about it any further, let me tell you a fact, about the sonnet itself. Like I mentioned earlier, this poem is a sonnet which contains 14 lines, and these lines are divided into 4 stanzas. The first 3 stanzas are called quatrains, means they have 4 lines each. Quatre stands for 4. And the last stanza is a couplet, which means only 2 lines, couple standing for 2. Let's move on and look at each stanza individually to understand the poem in detail. Not marble, nor the gilded monuments of princes shall outlive this powerful rhyme, but you shall shine more bright in these contents than unswept stone besmeared with sluttish time. This poem begins with a very assertive or firm statement. These lines, rather, tells us that almost all the beautiful monuments that we, human beings, build get destroyed with time. Many a time these creations may be pounded to the ground by big battles and conquests, and the princes on whose honor these monuments were made are forgotten. And if not by battles, then over a few centuries, these majestic structures may get destructed, or they will lose their luster and glamour. However, Shakespeare declares that contrary to the man-made structures, his sonnets have no destructible element in them. This is because they reach out to the hearts and the minds of the people. They express lyrical attraction and emotions so impressively that it gives them the power to fight against time. In simpler words, he feels that this sonnet, dedicated to his friend, will immune him to the destructive potential of time. It's quite an interesting stanza, isn't it? Well, I believe Shakespeare's words to be very true, because his works have literally survived in the minds of the people for more than, 500 years. But moving on, let us look at some of the interesting words of this stanza and learn their meanings. So the first word we have is gilded, and gilded means gold-plated. The next word we have is outlive, and outlive means to live or last longer than somebody else or something else. Then we have unswept, which means not swept or not cleared or unclean. Now the next word we have is besmeared, which means smeared or covered with something. The last word is sluttish, and that means disloyal. We will analyze the figures of speech for the first quatrain. Let's take a look at this. Not marble nor the gilded monuments of princes shall outlive this powerful rhyme, but you shall shine more bright in these contents than unswept stone besmeared with sluttish time. What do we notice here? We notice that in each line there is a repetition of the same sound. Now, you very well know what that is. In the first line, we have the sound of N and M repeated, which gives a poetic effect to the line. In the second line, we have the sound of P that is repeated, and in the third line, you have the sound of SH or sh, which is repeated. And finally, in the last line, the sound of S or S is repeated. Now, these repetitions of sound give a sort of beautiful lyrical effect if you observe what you read, and so you know what that is called. It is a fairly simple figure of speech, and it is called alliteration. Alliteration is the occurrence of the same consonant, letter, or sound at the beginning of adjacent or closely connected words. Now look at this line once more. Than unswept stone besmeared with sluttish time. So do you know that time is an inanimate thing, correct? But in this line, it is given the animate quality of being sluttish or disloyal. So from this we can say that time is given the human quality or is personified to give the lines a poetic effect. And that is a figure of speech which is called personification. Do you know what personification is? Personification is the attribution of a personal nature or a human characteristic to something else which is not human, or the representation of an abstract quality in human form. Got it? Let's talk about the rhyming words of this quatrain. Do you notice that the words of the first and the third line, monuments, rhymes with contents? Similarly, the words rhyme and time in the second and fourth line rhyme too. So what I want you to do is, like I just showed you, I want you to keep noticing all the rhyming words and the patterns of all the stanzas, and we will discuss about this at the end of the poem. Tutormate. For more amazing video lectures, download the free app on the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store.